What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical. Ooh, I got something in my eye. How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone's had a good weekend. Everyone's ready to talk about some Warhammer 40k because Warhammer 40k had a very interesting weekend this past week. Now I think we're really seeing sort of the data slate start to lock in. Leagues of Votan got all their models and can actually play real lists made by real human beings and not just the random garbage that GW decided to put into their starter box. As such, we saw, I think, one of the most interesting and diverse weekends of competitive Warhammer 40k that we've seen in a super long time. So I know there's some people in there in the chat right now who are a little bit astonished at the different miniatures on the thumbnail of the video. We got some Adrax Agatone action. We got some Custodes action. We got some Gene Stealer cult action. All of those we're going to be talking about today. And yeah, it's going to be sick. So let's just friggin' dive right into it. Nurgleman in chat, I'm sorry, I had to turn off the music so I could talk to you guys. I'm sorry that the dulcet tones of my voice is not music enough to your ears, Nurglemat. But thanks everyone for coming and hanging out with me. My cat wants to sit on my lap really hard right now. She's pawing at me. And I hope everyone got some good gaming in over the weekend. So I didn't, unfortunately. I was going to go to an RTT, ended up not firing, so I didn't go. And I would have talked about it today, because I'm playing some weird and wacky Tyranid lists, but I've been live streaming them. I've been having some rocky times with Tyranids for the last couple of games, but I think I'm locking into a list that works pretty well. I could just go back to play Chaos Demons and play Flamers, but not right now. We want to play some some Tyranids. All right, chat. Let's just get on in here. So this is, we're talking about the weekend of November 12th with a bunch of different events over here on our DGI readout. I know there's going to be some questions in the chat before we get too far in. DiscountGamesInc.com/tournaments is the website that I'm on to be looking at all of the tournaments. And we're starting pretty strong with Corsair Open. This was 30 players, I believe. We saw Harlequins and Tyranids at the top, number 1 and number 2. Not too exciting. It is, Kraken Tyranids. There's a bunch of Raveners. There's some Zone Throws. It is what it is. It's mostly a Tyranid list, but obviously Gene Stealer cult at number 3 at X and 1 by Jens Gottfried. Might be Jens. I don't know if the J is silent, but I'm sure someone can yell at me in the comment section. Playing, interestingly, a little bit of a different cult, and I'm actually going to have to look up what their secondary cult creed does here. They do have industrial affinity, so ignore penalties to hit on their industrial weapons, so most notably their mining lasers and seismic cannons. But that basically allows them to move and shoot without penalty, which is a pretty big deal. The other one is impassioned, which we typically don't see. That gives them +1 to hit on first round of combat. So basically shock assault for a hit roll, which is actually very good, I think. But I don't think they have a lot of other hit benefits, at least in melee, because the Primus, I believe, only gives rerolls to hit. Is that right? He gives reroll once? Yeah, reroll hit rolls of 1 and wound rolls of 1. Okay, fair enough. That's pretty interesting. So normally we see Convoy alongside the Rending subfaction ability, so +1 AP on 6s to wound, and accustomed to toil, so a stalwart effect on the entire army. But we don't typically, we're not seeing that one today, and in fact, that is because we're going to be playing a little bit more of a melee-focused Gene Stealer cult army in Yen's list here. We have a Magus and a Primus in the HQ slot of a battalion detachment. Oh, I really got something on my face here, chat. I apologize. Ooh. Ooh. Got a little stray hair there. Looks like one 5-model Acolyte Hybrid unit, and then 1, 2, 3 giant Acolyte Hybrid units, one with rock drills, 6 rock drills in that unit, in a grand total of 15 models, and then we have 2 10s with 4 rock cutters. So we're going to be using that impassioned subfaction ability to get around, to buff up the heavy weapons, obviously. One more unit of 5 Acolyte Hybrids, 1 unit of Neophyte Hybrids. No proficient planning upgrade on them, but we do have Pure Strain Gene Sailors with the pre-game move. They came from below, alongside a Nexos, Kellamore, and Sanctus. 3 Achilles Ridge Runners. Been a little bit since we've seen those. And then we do have the Industrial Affinity there, right? So that will potentially buff those mining lasers when we're firing through dense cover or something like that. 2 units of 3 Adelan Jackal, or 4 Adelan Jackals, excuse me. Probably mostly for secondary objectives. 2 Goliath Rock Grinders with those seismic cannons, and a truck. If it's the Scandinavian version of Gens, the J is not silent. Love it. Yeah, this is definitely very different than the bike list we normally see. Normally we're seeing a huge 2 to 3 big huge units of Adelan Jackals to get the effects of obviously that Stalwart and the 6-up damage ignore. They're innately -1 to be hit, and then an Acolyte Icon Ward can stand next to them and regenerate them. So the list is very much, it's trying to rely on resilience. Which is a little bit weird when you think about it for Gene Stealer Cult. But also those Goliath Rock Grinders also have that built-in -1 damage and can ignore damage on 6s as well. Now, we're not seeing that combo in this list. Instead, I think we're just going to be trading Acolyte Hybrids for objectives for the most part. We have one with a Trap Sprung, which I will double-check there. So roll 3d6 and drop 1 for a charge if they come out of reinforcements. So they can deep strike on people. The other 2 Acolyte Hybrid units don't have any buffs. Don't have any proficient planning buffs. So mostly just going to be playing kind of a standard, a straight-up game of 40k when we're trying to jump those guys in. But also no regeneration for these guys. There's a stratagem, right? To regenerate models. Am I wrong about that? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Yeah, I think I'm probably mistaken. It would just be the... Oh, yeah, they could just heal. It would just be the Icon Ward, but we don't have an Icon Ward in this list, so no regeneration at all. Boom. Oriol Artigas, thanks for the super chat, man. Really appreciate you. So that's cool. We're starting strong with a 4-in-1 Gene Stealer Cult. Gene Stealer Cult's really... Smile. Oh, there you go. There goes a little bit of delayed response from the bot there, but I appreciate you, dude. So that was Corsair Open GT. Now we also have the 2d6 GT. We saw Tyranids from Sveinung. It is a Kraken detachment. It does have Old One-Eye in it. That's fun. So basically, I think running him as he's kind of a I don't know. He's sort of like a Foot Hive Tyrant. He doesn't get any of the benefits of being a Foot Hive Tyrant. He's not a Psyker. He's not a Synapse. And he costs a lot. But he can't be shot. So you don't even need to keep him in your Tyrant Guard. And he can just sort of sit, chill in your army. And especially for Kraken, being able to put your characters out in sort of annoying places. You can sit them next to a unit to give them Lookout Sir that's hiding out of line of sight. And then you play so aggressively that you can usually not shoot those characters. So Old One I can play sort of around the center of the table. And especially with the Kraken strat for a +8-inch, for an 8-inch advance, he can really like rock it out and just blow something up if he needs to. So that's pretty cool. Oh, 235 points for that guy's a lot. We also see 2 Harpies in this list. This is interesting because it's a very sort of non-synergistic Kraken list. Old One-Eye, I think, is good in Kraken. The +1 AP is good on him, and the advancing is good on him. Gargoyles and Hormiguns obviously great in Kraken just to trade for objectives, but other than that, Zone Throws, Venom Throws, Harpies, 1 unit of Raveners. Basically just playing kind of a normal like High Fleet Leviathan list that we would typically see, but playing it Kraken. So there you go. Seems like an interesting list. I think one way that we're going to see Tyranid start to move, and one thing that I've been trying to work into my lists as I am refining Tyranid lists is building lists that don't immediately give up no prisoners, which is something that's really problematic for the faction right now. Where if you focus on the Raveners, each Ravener unit gives up 2 to 3-ish points on no prisoners just by itself. And the same thing for Tyranid Warriors and for Zone Thropes. And so trying to peel away from that and include units like Old One Eye and include units like the Harpies to make it more difficult to score against definitely makes those Tyranid lists be a lot more consistent when it comes to actually getting those Ws. Obviously, your opponent's score doesn't matter so much for your final placement, but you do actually need to win. So if your opponent has like an immediate 15-point secondary that they can just rock on the table, you're like, dang, that sucks. Especially because Tyranids, I think Kraken especially probably has to win in the primary game because their secondaries are a little mediocre. But then moving on, Jonathan Arkin here, 5-0 with Adeptus Custodes. And this is the weekend of the Custodes, I think, chat, because we have a lot of Custodes lists to talk about. And this is a really cool Custodes list. We have it's a Shadow Keepers list to start, so reducing enemy attacks coming in. We have a Blade Champion with Lock Warden, a Dawn Eagle Jetbike Shield Captain with the Stasis Oubliette, Superior Creation Radiant Mantle, so that's a -1 to be hit, I believe. Superior Creation for the 5+ Ignore, and Tip of the Spear, so that guy's an absolute truck. Trajan Valoris, because you got to have that guy. 2 units of 3 Custodian, a mix of spears and shields there. 1 unit of Sagittarum, 5 Prosecutors, so tons of troops, really focusing on that objective secured. I don't think we have none of the characters are OBSEC, unfortunately. Nobody has that Impregnable Mind. 1 Contemptor Achilles, a Vexillus Praetor, 2 units of Virtus Praetors. The Vexillus does have the Defensor, so the light cover aura, which is a little interesting. Oftentimes you see the Magnifica, but so much stuff just sort of randomly ignores dense cover, and especially right now, for sort of worrying about Emperor's Children, having that save bonus incidentally, whereas a lot of armies are going to be ignoring the hit penalty or just re-rolling through it, makes a ton of sense. So you can go to a 1+ save. Not everyone's ignoring light cover right now. There was a serious problem, 3-4 months ago, where you would roll up a light cover aura and you would get paired into like Eldari every round, and then they would just ignore cover because they were playing expert shots. And so a lot of armies ignored light cover, but that's no longer the case. Light cover is actually a very big deal, and especially with a lot of armies kind of relying on those armor save improving effects, it makes a lot of sense. I think if you can ignore light cover right now, it's a huge deal. As long as you're like AP 2-ish, so you can get around light cover and a 1+ armor save. If you can do both of those things, ignoring light cover basically becomes +1 to your AP. But we're leaning into the cover aura. We have 2 units of Virtus Praetors with salvo launchers and 1 Caladius Grav tank with Iliastus accelerators. So this is very much like it's almost like what do you call it, like a battalion box Adeptus Custodes army, where it looks like, or a codex photograph army, where like there's a couple characters, there's a couple bikes, there's a couple infantry squads, there's like 1 dreadnought to be like a centerpiece, and like 1 tank. It's very much like a well-rounded, well-balanced list. So that's sick. What are orcs like these days competitively? Egg Train? Do you mean like power level wise, or the lists that you build? Typically, the lists that are built are almost entirely, I would say it's split like 50-50 between. Occasionally, we see the Speedwa Army of Renown that pops up every once in a while, which focuses a little bit more on buggies, and Def Cop does. Most of the time, you're going to see like a kill rig rush where you play Goths and 2 to 3 kill rigs. You fill them with Beast Nagaboys, and then you basically fill the rest of the points out with fast cavalry and vehicles and characters. And then occasionally you'll see lists that bring out stuff like Gaskell in a battle wagon and Truck Boy Mega Knobs in trucks or battle wagons. So a lot of times orcs are focusing on sort of aggressive melee, not necessarily to just kill you in melee, but also just to lock you in your deployment zone, and then score primaries over top of that. That's typically what we'll see with orcs. I think we have some orc lists to talk about actually today. Speaking of this week being like super exciting and there being a ton to talk about. Yeah, but orcs are pretty orcs they're doing fine in terms of power level, for sure. I'm not going to go ahead and say that they're the best faction ever, but they're very strong. Yeah, we have a undefeated orc list in Baltic Cup, just the next event we're going to talk about. I don't know if we have any XO lists. Doesn't look like it. But we did at least have an undefeated one. I did see a list played the other day. I was at an RTT a couple of weeks ago. Steve Pamprine was there playing, and he was sort of making a comeback. He had a couple kids, so he hasn't seen play in a really long time. Jonathan
I went
DeLeo.
3-0 at a local RTT with my own special Yorm list. I would appreciate your thoughts on it. Love what you do for the NID community.
Thanks. Thanks for the super chat. Yeah, if you want to drop that to me on Discord or something, I would be happy to take a look through it. I love especially Yormungander lists. That sounds super fun. So yeah, give me a PM. Shoot me that list. We'll take a look at it on the stream. But yeah, he was playing. He typically played orcs and mostly orcs, actually, just almost entirely orcs throughout 8th edition, and was coming back out 3-0 at RTT in my local area with Death Skulls orcs. And it was basically just every OBSEC infantry that he could get his hands on. So it was tons of commandos, tons of storm boys. He had Scorches in transport to just rock around and throw out a bunch of dice. Yeah, he won all his games. Just it turns out, like, having your entire army be objective secured in a point of the game where a lot of armies have problems with mass objective secured. We're looking at armies like Custodes, we just talked about, right? Very few objective secured models. Chaos Space Marines, really weak on objective secured. Chaos Demons the same way. Chaos Demons list only typically has 1 or 2 units with OBSEC, and if you're just constantly pelting them with these like 10 model orc squads that just steal all your objectives, maybe kill a couple models, and then die, and then you just roll out and do it again, you get absolutely screwed on score, and that's mostly where orcs are playing right now. Dropped it in Discord. All right, it's cool. After we finish off these lists, we'll take a look. We do have Rasmus Valand Fredrickson here with a Tau Empire list. Is Farsight Enclaves. Commander Farsight making an appearance here. Nice to see him around. Pretty solid commander, I think. The biggest downside of Commander Farsight is that he takes up your commander slot. So if you're trying to take like a Enforcer Commander and like a Fist of the Cold Star guy, you can't take both, and that kind of sucks. But I mean, he's basically got like 2 plasma guns, 2 plasma rifles strapped together that he doesn't have to pay for. He's decent in melee, and his Warlord traits Exemplar of the Mountain Cow, which you're going to be taking anyway. I kind of like Commander Farsight. I think he's pretty sweet. But yeah, so we have Exemplar of the Callion on a Fireblade. It's a little interesting. Although I don't think we have any actual Fire Warriors. So he's just in there for Exemplar of the Callion because we cannot take a Humble Stave Ethereal to stick that on because we're playing Farsight. We have a Cold Star Commander, solid image projection, so he's tough to kill with the thermonutronic projector and a billion burst cannons, 1 missile pod, with 2 marker drones, 3 units of 10 Kroot Carnivores, and then 3 big bricks of Crisis Battlesuits, classic Farsight Enclaves. 1 with Flamers, burst cannon, and early warning override. So that, I believe, lets us... That's the upgrade that lets you... you can cut shot down to damage 0, right? Once per turn. I'm going to double check before I misspeak there. Or it's a stratagem, excuse me. It's not once per turn. Oh, just kidding. That's counterfire defense. Blech. Early warning is intercept? Oh no, Overwatch. You Overwatch good. That's it. Yeah. Overwatch on 5s and you Overwatch for free. That's the one. Yeah, so it looks like all of them have that upgrade. Yeah, so it's the one guy hits on 5s, right? Because one dude has the EWO, but everyone Overwatches for free. But still only once per turn. That's the kicker. So mostly shield generators, stim injectors on the first unit. The second unit is fusion cyclone plasma. or cyclone. And then the last unit is cyclic missile plasma. So we have very close, very close, medium range, 18 inches, and then a little bit longer. We could shoot 30 with those guys if we wanted to. So we can operate over every range. Interestingly, no stealth battlesuits. So we can't teleport Homer or homing beacon any of the crisis battlesuits in. But I think generally speaking, you're fine. The Cold Star commander can just make them advance really far, and then they can go ahead and blast. Or you can just deep strike innately, especially if it's one of the longer range units. Getting screened out on those guys is a little bit tough, and then you can use the Farsight Enclave strat for full rerolls. And then 3 units of crew downs. Very simple list. 3 carnivores, 3 crisis battlesuits, 2 commanders of Fireblade, and 3 crew downs. Done. All right, fair enough. It's a very classic Town Empire list. We do have some Adeptus Sororitas here. Look at that, it's Bloody Rose. Oh, Sacrosancts. A little bit different than normal. So Canoness with an Infernal Pistol. A Palatine, 4 units of Battle Sisters, 1 Novitiate squad. The Novitiates in Bloody Rose are actually pretty brutal. I believe they started Strength 4 AP 0, but they get a pip of AP for being Bloody Rose. And then they get their additional attack. So they're Strength 4, and they make 4 attacks apiece. So for 75 points, you have a 10 model OBSEC unit. They can miracle charges, so they threat pretty far. And they attack 40 times. So in the fight between Chaff Infantry, Novitiates are actually absolutely brutal. The downside is that obviously you have to take Battle Sisters alongside them. And that's a little bit sad. 2 units of Sacrosancts, 1 Dogmata, 1 unit of Paragon Warsuits. Make use of that wade into the foe stratagem, give them exploding 4s against big units. 2 units of 9 Sisters Repentia, huge Sisters Repentia units. Normally we would take, I think, 3 of 7, but we are running out of elite slots in this list. So if you want to fit everything into a battalion, can't really do too much there. 3 Sororitas Rhinos. So really using that ability to pre-game move. 1 Dominion squad, 1 Retributor squad, 2 Retributor squads, excuse me. So we can, I guess you can mix and match how you want your Rhinos to sort of alpha people. We don't have a Repentia Superior, so and we also don't have Morvenval, interestingly. So there's not really any reason for your units to start on the table because there's no command phase abilities to target them with. So your Retributors can go in the Rhinos. You can put a Retributor with a Dominion squad, and that Rhino can pregame move for free. And then you can use the Bloody Rose stratagem to pregame move another Rhino, and that can either have double Retributor squads in it, or a Sisters Repentia squad in it, or just a singleton Retributor squad, and maybe some Battle Sisters to drop OBSEC somewhere. So it gives you like a lot of forward placement, and then you can use the Rhinos to kind of slingshot your models, as we've seen on stream a lot, and we've talked about it a little bit. But you can put your you put your models behind the Rhinos. Basically, they embark the turn previous, and then the next turn when they go to fight, they disembark the other side of the Rhino. So they can start probably 9 inches away from a Rhino, move up, embark within 3, then disembark on the other side. So they gain about 10 inches of movement over those 2 disembarks. Pre-game Rhino move is only 1 CP for the Sacrosancts too. Yeah, I guess that's also true. Yeah, you could put the Sacrosancts inside as well. I mean, I guess you have a lot of 10 model units or 9 to 10 model like sort of modules, so you can kind of put whatever you want. Definitely forgot to silence my phone, and I was like, it's fine. Nobody will call me during this stream, right? I won't get any spam calls. Turns out I did. Incredible. Good stuff. And I guess depending on the mission and the matchup, you can just decide what you want to go in anyway. The Repentia being capped at 9 is kind of interesting because you can put the Repentia in a Rhino with a character. So you can like deliver your Dogmata into the middle of the table on turn 1 alongside 9 Repentia, and then also use the stratagem to let her intone for 1 CP. Very cool. All right. Well, I kind of honestly clicked on this list in a little bit of jest because I figured it would look like every other Sororitas list, but it looks a little different, and I like it. It's very flexible. Yeah, chat. If you haven't seen Bloody Rose lists, they are all in on rhinos. They love them some rhinos. Peter Pay here, also with Chaos Demons. This is a little bit interesting. A little bit less flamers than normal. Oh, no, it's not. Just kidding. It's 18 flamers. It's just split between 2 detachments. So it is both mixed detachments, though. Okay, interesting. A Bloodthirster, not the Warlord. He just has Argath, King of Blades. Demon Prince of Chaos, who is the Warlord. 2 units of Demonettes. The Demon Princes of Chaos, by the way, chat. They're a little expensive, and they're kind of slow, unless you buy wings for them, which are like 50 points, I think, or 30 points. And the wings are wildly expensive for Chaos Demon Princes. But they're untargetable characters, and they actually hit like a truck. So this guy has the Nurgle Relic weapon to ignore damage ignore abilities, so he gets through phase caps. And he has Virulent Touch, which I have to look up. I know that there's a cool combo that I like is you can get like 8 or 9 attacks out of a Khorne Demon Prince at like strength 9 damage 4, which is pretty strong. And I know there's a couple other pretty effective builds out of the other allegiances for Demon Princes. So that is automatic wounding. So no damage ignores, automatic wounds, and corruption gives it a +1 damage. So he's running the big sword, which I think is like strength 7, 2 damage. Is that right? Or 3 damage, so it goes to 4. Strength 8, excuse me, 3 damage. So it goes to 4 damage, automatic wounds, and cannot be ignored. That is pretty good. Not a spam call at 6 a.m. Let me tell you, if somebody called me at 6 a.m. chat, I would miss it. There's no way I would be waking up at 6 a.m. for a phone call. I would be, it would be right over my head. I had to, I don't know, maybe this is just like sort of hashtag content creator life, but I got up for a meeting at 8 a.m. yesterday, and that was like kind of a big deal for me. I woke up at 8 a.m. Can you imagine? But usually I work really late, so that's and just ends up being how it is. I stayed up working until 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. Excuse me. 1 unit of Bloodletters, Balakor, Fate Skimmer, 1 Exalted Flamer, regular unit of Flamers. So we don't have access to any of the demonic effects. It's unfortunate we couldn't just make this as ancient attachment because we were 1 unit off. I almost wonder if you would drop the Exalted Flamer there for some regular boys to make that as ancient attachment and get +1 to cast on Balakor and the Fate Skimmer. But you're probably, I don't know, focusing on maybe healing the Bloodthirster since he's only Indomitable Onslaughted. Very good, though. Very nice. All right, before we move to Baltic Cup, we want to talk about Jonathan's Yormungander list. Let's get a quick grab of that bad boy. Cool. We did it. I will post a link to this list document in chat for everyone here. There you go. Start work at 6:30 a.m. every day. I'm sorry. It's unfortunate. I think, I mean, generally speaking, like people, like you end up just transposing your time, right? So I wake up kind of late. I usually wake up like 9 or 10, but I'm usually go to sleep at 2 or 3 a.m. So I think, generally speaking, you just transpose, but I enjoy working late. I find myself a little bit more productive when I go late. I don't know. I think it's just personal preference, but I do appreciate that I'm lucky enough to be self-employed and be able to like sort of choose when I work. So I don't know. It is what it is. All right, here we go. The Yormungander list. Hope everyone can see this. Oop, no, it's a little bit cut off. There we go. That's much better. We just gotta maybe get rid of all of your ads there, Paceman? Nope. All right. So it's a battalion detachment. It is Yormungander with synaptic ganglia. Which I'll just verify for myself here. So that is the deny the witch and increase the range of your powers by 3 inches. So are we casting some smites today? Reroll deny the witch is pretty good though. That actually it gives you a lot of opportunity to stop incoming psychic interrogations, and that's a pretty big deal. Or warp rituals even. Almost more so with warp rituals because they're typically in shadow. 1 Zoanthrope unit, the Tyrant Guard. A Foot Hive Tyrant with an HVC with Shard Gullet. Very nice. Heart Incentives to reroll all of his wound rolls, or his hit rolls, excuse me. Pretty good. I do like that one on the Tyrants, especially because like you can also play them kind of aggressively. So you can sort of like plant that guy in the middle of the table, put him next to the Tyrant Guard so he's hard to shoot. And then even if your opponent like triggers a heroic intervention or something, you really mess up their activation order. And especially if your Venom Throps trigger on them, they just get murdered because the Hive Tyrant also fights first with heightened senses. So yeah, I do appreciate that combo for sure. We have 2 Neurothropes, one with Resonance Barb. I'm kind of coming back to the opinion that I think the Resonance Barb Neurothrope is like sort of required. Getting forward deploy in your army is really tough, and so a lot of times like we saw people playing the Broodlord with Alien Cunning, so he's objective secured, he's good at stealing objectives, and he forward deploys for Recover the Relics, so you can you don't lose like 2 CP if you go second. But honestly, like I kind of feel like we're in we're at a point where so many factions secondaries are so good that Tyranids kind of have to build for Psychic Interrogation because they're one of the best factions at Psychic Interrogation. Probably the third after Eldar and Thousand Suns. So being able to like lock that in 90% of matchups, and just being like a 12 or a 15 on secondaries is really important. And having to dodge that one matchup or that one mission for that is like, it is what it is. 2 units of 10 Gargoyles, 3 Tyranid Warriors. Good stuff. A Maleceptor. Interesting. 2 units of Venom Thropes. So I think we're probably playing some defensive gameplay there by trying to make people fight last with the Venom Thropes and then fight first with the Hive Tyrant. The second Zoanthrope unit, love it. I'm so sold on 2 Zoanthrope units. Every time I don't take 2 Zoanthrope units, I run into like Chaos Space Marines and they just like run 10 dudes in the middle of the table, and I'm like, what do I do? How do I kill these Terminators? Oh no! Let's see. The Parasite of Mortrex is Alien Cunning. I do like this combo. I think I might start playing this combo just for the situations where you go second and you need it, or you are in an awkward situation where you don't have a good place to put a banner on a corner deployment. So the Parasite can advance and drop the banner down so it can run really far. I think I really like it in Hive Fleet Kraken for the most part, but it's probably good everywhere. But Kraken just lets it like move 24 inches, so you can just basically anywhere on the table you can just take an objective on the final round for 1 CP. A bunch of Raveners, interesting, and 3 Biovores and a Sporocyst. So I guess the question there, Jonathan, for you is if they used any special rules for placement of the Sporocyst, because that's what I've found with the biggest inconsistency with the Sporocyst is that a lot of terrain setups, it doesn't have anywhere good to place unless you house roll the terrain, the fortification deployment. So like that's what a lot of the US Open events you see the Sporocysts do really well, and that's sort of the reason for that. But yeah, this list is really cool. I'm interested to hear, I guess, what you think of the Venom Thropes plus Hive Fleet Yormungander, because a lot of times you get the benefit of dense cover from a lot of shooting attacks, but obviously the Venom Thropes are mostly a melee unit in this particular list, where you're trying to sort of disincentivize people from charging into you. But I don't know. I think I like to play a little bit more aggressively, so if people are charging me, I just assume I'm going to die anyway. Spore Assist was able to forward deploy, and the event was player placed. Ah, well, okay. Well, there you go. So you can just like leave yourself a little spot to put the Spore Assist down. Nice. That's good. Yeah, I really like this list. I especially like the combination of obviously the double Neurothrope. You have the Parasite of Mortrex for scenario control, and then on top of that, you also have the reroll denies for enemy powers. Is pretty sick, and especially because you have the characters are going to be placed relatively far forward, not super far forward, but you have like the Resonance Barb Neurothrope. He's kind of an aggressive guy. The Foot Hive Tyrant and the Parasite of Mortrex, plus a Maliceptor. So there's a ton of Shadow in the Warp like everywhere around the table. So you're going to be denying powers left and right, and it's going to really throw people off, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Good stuff. This list is cool. Kudos playing like a fun and interesting Tyranid list. I think that the Biovore plus Spore Assist Wombo combo there works best if you have other units that your opponent's like light shooting would want to go into. So if you have those Venom Thropes playing kind of far forward, you can surround them with the Spore Mines, and if your opponent wants to get into them, which they don't really want to anyway, they have to choose between either hitting the Spore Mines or hitting the Venom Thropes. And if they shoot the Spore Mines and kill them, that's fine, but then you get to hit them with like 10 Venom Thropes. Or 10 Spore Mines. But obviously if they shoot the Spore Mines, the Venom Thropes are still there. And I think that's the situation where the Spore Mines and the Spore Assist works most of the time, is when like you force awkward decisions on your opponent where like you have a bunch of OBSEC dudes on an objective, but if you shoot them, your little guns can't go into the Spore Mines. I think that's like where those Spore Mines really key off. No. Finals were a mirror match with Tyranids. Oh yeah, I can see that real deny being brutal. That's awesome. Good stuff. All right, cheers. Well, that's a sick list. I'm glad we got a chance to take a look at that, and thanks again for the super chat. All right, we just talked about the 2d6 GT. We're moving up in the world now. Get some lists out of the Baltic Cup. Now I believe we'll start with this Imperium list, and I have some questions about this Imperium list. We can talk about it real quick. It's Sororitas, Bloody Rose Sororitas plus Imperial Knights, but I am not sure about the selection of this Imperial Knights here. I think it's a good combo because the Imperial Knights add some really long range firepower that sisters usually have to take Castigators to get, which they don't love to do. So I think like the combination of the two sub-factions is good. This list is Canoness, Celestine, and Morvenval. 1 Novitiate, 2 Battle Sisters, 3 units of Sisters Repentia with a Dogmata, 2 units of Zephyrim with a Seraphim Squad. Get some secondary objectives going on. And 2 Sororitas Rhinos. So, I mean, kind of a similar deal to what we saw before, but instead of taking Retributors and all that stuff, we're just going to be taking those Imperial Knights. The weird part here is that he's marked his Imperial Knights as an army of renown, and that is certainly not legal if you have other units in your army. So I don't know if he was just trying to make them get the Free Blade Knight abilities or not, but you definitely can't take 1 detachment as an army of renown. No good. No good there. But otherwise, yeah, 3 Armiger Halberins to be shooting at people. Pew pew. All right. This is a bit of an interesting list. So we have Chaos Knights plus Tzeentch for Tzeentch Flamers. Although not too many Flamers. Actually just 10 Flamers. So not the full 3 that we could typically see, but obviously Patrol Detachment. We do have some actual pink horrors in here, and this is a bit of a version of the list I've been seeing pop up a little bit more often. It's just having the pink horrors in there as a really awkward unit to kill, because the pink horrors, you can sit on an objective even against really heavy enemy shooting. You're basically guaranteed that unit's not going to die, because every time you kill a pink through a 3+ demonic invulnerability save against ranged attacks, there's a 50-50 chance they turn into 2 blues, and then the blues have a 50-50 chance to turn into 1 Brimstone Horror. So if you assume that you lose 10 pinks over the course of the game, obviously if they get one shot, it doesn't work. And if they get killed by mortals, it doesn't work. But if they're just sitting on your back line, killing a pink will generate you usually 5 sets of blues, which is 10. So you're already at 20 models. And those blues have a 50-50 chance of turning into a brim. So you should get 5-ish brims out of it. So this unit is basically 25 models sitting on an objective for 150 points, assuming your opponent kills them slowly over the course of the game, which doesn't usually work. Usually they get touched in melee and the whole unit vaporizes. But if you're forcing your opponent to get up onto your side of the table and melee you, and the rest of your army is Flamers and Chaos Knights, you're probably in a pretty good spot. So those guys being able to perform actions, being able to hold an objective with OBSEC in the back of your deployment zone all game is pretty nice. Good stuff. Ken Peters with the Advanced Tactics membership. Thanks, buddy. Hope you enjoy all those cool tactics videos. So, yeah, it's one Abominant with the Aura of Terror, which, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, is roll an extra dice for morale and dread test and pick the worst one. And then Blessing of the Dark Master, so that he's difficult to kill. 3 Executioners, 2 individual Carnivores, and 2 Stalkers. This one is in House Vextrix. That one I don't know. It's nice to see something that's not just Herpatrax every time. I think generally speaking, you see Herpatrax. Vextrix is you get a Master Artisan's reroll, hit roll, and a wound roll. Interestingly, not hit roll or wound roll. It's hit roll and wound roll. So it's old school Master Artisans. It's the real Master Artisan's ability, and you can ignore hit roll or ballistic skill modifiers when you're shooting. So that's actually a pretty good pick against enemy Chaos Space Marines, because they have or I guess that wouldn't affect illusory supplication. It's a hit roll modifier, not an auto miss. So mostly just to get through hit penalties, I guess, which is pretty okay. Although if you're big beaters and Abominant, you're probably not using it too much, because you don't have too many. There's not a lot of firepower in a single model, but because you're running all the War Dogs, getting the reroll on everyone is that's the most efficient you can get rerolls in Chaos Knights anyway. All right, good stuff. That's an interesting list. We do have some other super interesting Chaos lists to talk about later on as well. And we talked up Orcs quite a bit here, chat. Thomas Brucher with Orcs, bringing Goths. Undefeated, technically undefeated. 4-0-1. So he didn't lose any games, but he did draw one to stop him from getting into that top 2. And this looks like we're on that kill rig. That big kill rig energy, chat. We have Beast Boss and Squigosaur, Boss Zagstruck, 2 units of Beast Snagga Boys to go inside those kill rigs, 1 unit of Gretchen to get the good bits, get that secondary objective action going, 1 unit of 5 Commandos. The Commandos are so good for forward deploy. I mean, forward deploy is always good. They're good for Recover the Relics. They're good for screening turn 1 deep strikes and other forward deployers as well. It's just super solid. Plus, they like kind of slap. They have their fight or make you fight last and then +1 to wound wombo combo there. So if you go into them with a small unit and you can't fight first, and you don't have a way to prevent them from fighting, then they will just kill you. 5 Mega Knobs with Combi Scorches in a truck, and they are truck boys, so the truck can move and then they can disembark and charge. So on your WA turn, they actually go ridiculous distance, because the truck moves 12, they disembark 3, advance another 8 or so, so they go probably 23 and then charge from the starting point of the truck there. 2 units of 3 Squig Hog Boys, and then a patrol detachment with a Beast Boss and Squigosaur, 10 more Beast Snagga Boys, 10 more Gretchen, 2 units of Storm Boys, and 6 Killicans. Not too often that you see the Killicans. Interesting that we're taking Killicans in addition to the kill rigs. Although you're not really going to give up too many points on Bring It Down, I think, because the Killicans only give up 6, and then the kill rigs each give up 3. So you could give 12. 14, I guess, with the truck. So that does open up your opponent for another secondary, but generally they're going to take like Assassination against Orcs. Killicans, chat. That's fun. Now I'm not sure if Killicans have any particular synergy right now. Are they? Can they do the action? I assume they can't because you have to be infantry. Because they're Gretchen keyworded, right? But I don't think that they have the correct secondaries there. Oh, core units only. Yeah, it's only core units. So that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what these Killicans are doing, but they do. Yeah, I don't know. For 105 points, you get a bunch of wounds to certain objectives. So that seems pretty good. Talk about Killicans real quick. Yeah, so they're 5 wounds apiece for 35 points. So their points per wound is actually almost the best in the Orc Codex outside of Gretchen by themselves. They go to 4 attacks if the unit hasn't suffered any casualties. But they are only weapon skill 4. So they're just sort of swinging wildly.
Thanks for another great stream. Dad had knee surgery, so need to go pick up some groceries and then get dinner started. Thanks again.
Ken Peters, I hope your dad's knee surgery went really well. But really appreciate you for the super chat, dude. Thank you so much. And hope you get some delicious groceries for dinner. Yeah, so Killicans. I don't know. They're they're just guys with shooters, I guess. Well, seems fine. Good stuff. I guess for 35 points, they are sort of hard to kill. So I don't hate it. I'm just not sure how much damage they're doing. But for 35 points, you're not really that worried about doing like 1 million damage. They are just going to be kind of a utility unit that's 15 wounds at T5 3+ save, which is sort of fine. All right, good stuff from the Baltic Cup. All hope is lost. This was a little bit of a small event. I think it was only 18 or 20 players. Was won by Tyranids. That's a high fleet Kraken list. Exciting. Parasite of more treks, some biovores. Oh, this is only this is an incursion event actually, so this is only 1,000 points. All right, then we can move on. Protect your neck, GT. We did have looks like our order or our placings are a little bit messed up here, but Chris Canair, so that's Barb, one with Necrons, with a bunch of Scarab Swarms and stuff. Okay. If you want to hear us talk about Necrons, you can watch any of the other streams that we've done. Talks about Necrons a ton. We do have a Keith Wilkinson playing Heretic Astartes as an Emperor's Children list. Pretty standard stuff. Bunch of Nose Marines, bunch of Terminators. We've talked about that in the past. We don't have to dive too far into that list. We do have a mixed Imperium list here, and this is, I believe... oh, this is more Adeptus Custodes, actually. There is a Astra Militarum plus Grey Knights list again. I think Kyle Cord went X1 with that build again. But this time we have Custodes Armor plus Astra Militarum, so that's frickin' sick. It's a Blade Champion and a Spearhead detachment. A lot of play from Blade Champions this weekend. This is probably the most Blade Champions I've seen in Adeptus Custodes since the model came out. 2 Palace Gravitax, 1 Contemptor Galladus, 3 Caladius Grav Tanks, 2 Telamon Heavy Dreadnoughts. Telamon Dreadnoughts even, chat. Oh my god. And we are an Emperor's Chosen, so we do get the reroll on those guys. Damn, alright, cool. Dreadnought. Telamon Dreadnoughts, chat. That's interesting. But then we're pairing that with 9th Ioshan Gorgons, 2 Tempestor Primes, 3 units of Militarum Tempestus Scions to get some secondary objectives, 2 more units of Command Squads with Plasma Guns to get those rerolls. I know some people are sad about the Tempestor, or the Tempestus Scion treatment in the new Codex, but I think they seem fine. But definitely opens you up to a little bit more maneuverable secondaries and a little bit more reach than you would normally get out of the Custodian armor. But 2 Telamon Heavy Dreadnoughts is not what I was expecting. out of this Adeptus Custodes list. Those guys are big, slow, and dumb. Love to hear something about Death Guard? Let me tell you, we got Death Guard coming up later in the video, chat. Don't worry yourself. Sam Boardman with some Heretic Astartes for this one. This is an Iron Warriors list, so a little bit different, but generally speaking, looks kind of the same as the other Heretic Astartes. We do have Demons Detachment, Mixed Demons, bringing Flamers and some Bloodletters for Deep Strike. We do have 2 Helldrakes, which is very different than we typically see, alongside the 10 Chaos Terminator unit with Black Rune of Damnation. What a shocker. Incredible. And the Dark Apostle stapled to their butt. 2 Cultist Mobs and a Legionnaire squad. Plus a Lord Discord and a Hellstalker and a Master of Possession. This unit becomes an absolute monster in Iron Warriors, by the way, chat, because Iron Warriors have the Salamander rule to turn off rerolls against them. And basically makes them unkillable. So you're only hit on 4s, can't reroll, only -1 to wound, potentially +1 toughness on them as well. So they probably only get wounded on 4s, no rerolls. So you're basically trans-hitman, transhuman most of the time. And if you have low strength attacks, you get absolutely wrecked by that. -1 to wound and no rerolls is brutal. We do have a Chaos Land Raider as well, so cool to see the 2 Helldrakes seeing play. You don't see those guys too often anymore. But obviously they do have that 1 CP -1 damage on Demon Engines, which I think definitely helps their survivability. The downside of Helldrakes a lot of times is they would like push forward and then immediately get killed by anything. But a -1 damage situationally on them definitely makes them a little tougher. All right, moving up in the world. We do have Warhammer 40,000 match play event. I think that normally means that it is a Warhammer World event, because I don't think Warhammer World typically names their events anything. But we do have Chaos Knights at 5-0, which is pretty rare. We actually had Chaos Knights twice in the top 5 events this weekend. So we're seeing like every faction in here. Like even low ranked factions are killing it this weekend. Super cool. 2 units of, or let's see. Oh, it's Abaddon walking the dogs. Now I was told that this list lost access to something. Lost access to secondaries, maybe? But I was unable to find where that actually changed. So I'm not 100% sure how this list operates right now. But we haven't seen it too often. But yeah, basically just a billion War Dogs with the bonuses from Abaddon. So he gives him reroll 1s and +1 charge. Plus he's they character protects for him, and he's just sort of a late game beater. So instead of running a big knight you can get shot by railguns, you run little Abaddon. Can't get shot by railguns and has basically the same damage output once he gets stuck in. Plus he's like harder to kill. If you only deal damage in 1 phase, he's significantly harder to kill. Yeah, if someone... So I was told in person that this list had an errata to Abaddon's Agent of Chaos, and I couldn't find it anywhere. But if someone does have that, I would be interested to know what changed, because I think it was something about his Agent of Chaos only turning on if he was in, if something else in your army also had the Heretic Astartes keyword or something. But I'm not sure if that is actually true, or whether that was just a sort of a proposed fix that somebody would make to that list. Not to say that I think that list is particularly strong. We don't see it too often. I know when the Chaos Knights book came out, it was pretty popular, but not so much anymore. Tyranids at the 5-0 slot. It's a Kraken list with a bunch of gargoyles, a bunch of warriors, 2 lictors. 2 lictors, that's interesting. Some Gene Stealers for the forward deploy, and a bunch of Carnifexes. All right, a little bit different. 1 Tyrannifex with an acid spray. 2 individual Carnifexes with HVCs. 3 Carnifexes with HVCs. One of them gets Synaptic Enhancement to give the other Carnifexes the Synaptic Imperatives. And we have a Broodlord as well with Gestation Sac, so he can forward deploy and then drop Rippers on a forward objective. Although no Alien Cunning. Any Alien Cunning at all? Nope. All right, fair enough. Trigon Prime, too, as well. So, that's a little different. This one has the Passenger, which I believe gives it an extra dice on charges and drop the lowest. Is that right? Excuse me, +2 to charge. So he's a total of +3 to charge because all of the charge bonuses stack for Tyranids. So he actually gets 6 in charges out of Deep Strike. His heightened senses, so he hits on 3s before rerolls, but unfortunately doesn't have any damage buff. So he's coming in at strength. I think that the passenger... Oh, it doesn't replace his adrenal glands. It just requires that he has adrenal glands. So he's still strength 8. Is that right for the Trigon Prime with the +1 strength? Yeah, it goes to strength 8, AP3, but only 2 damage. But 12 attacks at 2 damage is still gonna rip some people apart. That's super cool. I love that. It's actually probably, and I guess it goes to AP4 because of the Kraken sub-faction ability. So it's actually probably I would say maybe the best Trigon Prime build I've seen. I know a lot of people try to push their damage output a lot, but just ensuring that they make deep strikes out of charge is really good. Because you also have, like, you have warriors, and you have the Synapse Carnifex, so you can shoot somebody and then shard lure them for a CP when you drop the Trigon Prime in, and then the Trigon Prime can go in. So it's a 6-inch charge, roll 3 dice, drop the lowest. So it's almost guaranteed. That's like a 90%er by itself. Yeah, I didn't... it was just like a weird conversation. Somebody was telling me why we didn't see that list anymore, and it was because of an FAQ. And I looked for that FAQ, and I couldn't find one. So, I don't know, chat. Maybe it exists, and maybe it was fanciful talk. Now, we do have a 4-1 with Astra Militarum. Very cool. Disciplined Shooter's Gunnery Expert. A little bit different than the other ones. Gonna go grab my Astra Militarum here, chat, so I can make sure I know what that one does. Normally it's spotter details, but not today. We're running discipline shooters. Although to be fair, in a couple of weeks this isn't gonna matter so much anymore because we do have that that new codex coming out. That new codex looks absolutely brutal, by the way. I think it's awesome. You get rapid fire at 18 instead of 12, so a little different. Gunnery experts still get the rerolls on the tank commanders number of attacks, but we're only running 1 tank commander, it looks like. So we have a company commander, 1 tank commander, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 troops units, so 4 infantry squads, 2 Tempestus Scion squads. Now the Tempestus Scions, I don't believe, get the sub-faction ability, is that right? Or do they just they just get their own, right? Yeah, because they have a separate regiment keyword, so they unfortunately don't get the hotshot las cannons doubled out. Although they do in the new codex, I believe. They get your sub-faction abilities, and the Scions can get an extra sub-faction ability, right? They can pick their own. Or is that Khazarkan? That might be Khazarkan. I don't know. All the hotshot squads are hard to keep track of. We have a command squad, 1 platoon commander, 3 basilisks. So that's where we're going to be using our expert gunners there. And 2 Leman-Russ battle tanks alongside a shadow sword. All right, fair enough. Tons of armor in this list. Holy crap. So, excuse me, that's only 5 infantry squads for the OBSEC. 1 company commander, so we only have, plus a platoon commander. So we have 2 sets of orders, and then just a ton of armor. So 1 tank commander, 2 Leman-Russ battle tanks, 3 basilisks, and a shadow sword. All right, fair enough. Very straightforward there. We have Adeptus Custodes here. I said this is Adeptus Custodes weekend, and this event had 2 Adeptus Custodes, an X and 1. This is an Emperor's Chosen list. 2 Palace Grav Attack. 1 Alaris Terminator Shield Captain. With Obliteratum. That's fun. So, the big damage grenade launcher. 1 unit of Prosecutors. 3 Custodian Guards. And then a Vanguard detachment with 2 Contemptor Achilles. 3 Venerable Dreadnoughts, so the multi-multi Dreadnoughts, not the Forge World Contemptors, and 2 units of 3 Virtus Praetors. So very heavy on the heavy armor this time around. Nice. Dropping the Vexillus Praetors, I'm seeing. Less and less Vexillus Praetors as we move on. And then the second one, also Emperor's Chosen. Dawn Eagle Shield Captain this time. This one with Impregnable Mind. He is Obsec and Denies, I believe, right? And the Superior Creation for the 5+ damage ignore. Trajan Valoris, 1 unit of Custodian Guard, 2 units of Custodian Guard, excuse me, 1 with shields, 1 with a mix, a unit of Prosecutors to fill out the troop slot there, 2 Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts. So many Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts, chat. 1 of them with Eternal Penitent, 2 units of Virtus Praetors, a Caladius Grab Tank, and 1 Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. So many Telemons, too. Oh, my God. Venerable Contemptors, chat. Just a regular old Contemptor Dreadnought. Who needs a Galatus Shield? You don't need that. Throw it out. It's in the garbage. We're just going to get a Multi-Melta and a little punchy fist. Let's go. 3 damage. Get punch him. Oh, they're not objective secured thanks to Impregnable Mind? It just counts as extra models? That's... Have I been misspeaking all day? Have I just remembered that they were objective secured from the before 4 times when they got Obsec base? That's unfortunate, if true. Yeah. 2 additional models as when controlling an objective. So if you're not Obsec, they'll steal it from you, probably. Because they count as... They count extra base, right? And then they'll count as 2 additional. Oh, maybe not. So they just count as 3. That's unfortunate, actually. Secondary is significantly worse than it was. But the deny is still good, I think. And honestly, you often took it for the teleporting, the Praetorian Plate, right? The teleporting. And then so you could steal objectives from people. But a lot of times, because the psychic interrogation is so brutal against Adeptus Custodes, you took it for the deny anyway, just to be able to muck with people's psychic interrogations. And I think that was, remembering to my pre-nerf games versus Adeptus Custodes, that was like sort of the biggest tension, was being able to get around that guy's deny, because you could then, they could mess with you so hard if you were able to interrogate them. Or if you weren't able to interrogate them, they would just beat you on secondaries really easily. Northern Front, Fall GT had a 5-0 from Black Templars, and this is where we start to see the Space Marines come out of the woodwork here, chat. Because we have Black Templars and Salamanders at number 1 and number 2 for this time around. So I said at the top, the counts as 2 for Lookout, sir? Does it... That's not right? It counts as 2 for holding objectives, right? Yeah, when determining control of an objective marker. Oh, the everyone counts as 2 for Lookout, sir. Yeah. I gotcha. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, so the little squads can still LOS for people. Yeah. All right. We sussed it out. so he's 3 models, not objective secured, when holding objective, and can be LOS'd by 2 people instead of 3 normally. Yeah, I don't know. It is unfortunate for Adeptus Custodes. I don't like it when they edit those core mechanics. That's kind of why GW is so reticent right now to change people's points values, and I wish that they would just do it, because they're points values are the way to change individual units to make them less powerful. But these core mechanics changing break there's such a knock-on effect from an army-wide ability changing, and they're just throwing them around. I mean, a good example, right, is when they change like Tyranids, right, the Leviathan keyword, the Leviathan sub-faction ability changed, and suddenly half the units in the Codex don't benefit from the sub-faction ability at all. Why? Why would you do that? Adeptus Custodes, you change their army-wide OBSEC ability, and suddenly a bunch of other synergies in the Codex suddenly break, and it's really kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. Hope the data site gives Dreads Katas. I mean, I think that's whatever. It kind of would make sense for them to get Katas, but you know, it is what it is. I do wish, I don't know, I kind of wish Telemons like got core back or something. They're so derpy. People keep winning with them, and honestly, this might be controversial, but I don't understand why. I don't understand Telemon dreadnoughts. That's definitely 300 points for a unit that I don't see getting 300 points of work out of. But now we're talking about Black Templars. So yeah, we have a Salamanders and a Black Templar here from Northern Frontfall GT. Congratulations to all these folks. Brendan Krusty, that's his name now, playing Black Templars. All of the special characters, Grimaldus and Halbrecht. We have a Primaris Chaplain. No Tannhausos Bones, unfortunately, but Ancient Breviary, so we get the roll an extra dice on incanting litanies. But unfortunately, the downside of Grimaldus is that we cannot then turn the Chaplain into a Master Chaplain. What's the word? Master of Sanctity. That's the one. Because Grimaldus also already has the Master of Sanctity keyword. He does have a Warlord trait. He has Rights of War, so he's the Rights of War guy today. Although Black Templars can, I believe, just turn everybody into Objective Security if they want to for a CP. High Marshal Halbrecht and a Grimaldus in there. 2 units of Assault Intercessors, 1 in Cursor Squad. Big Blade Guard Veteran Squad with Icon of Heinemann to reduce AP incoming, I believe, right? Ignore AP 1 and 2 on the one shield guy. So you can continuously kill him, and then we do have a Primaris Apothecary down here with Selfless Healer to just regenerate him back, so that Blade Guard squad is really tough to kill. Holy Orb on the other Blade Guard squad, which is a fight last on a stick, right? And then also does D3 mortals, if I remember correctly, which is just a really nice ability to have. I'm just going to double check that's what it does, so I'm not talking out my bum. Moving on, though, we have the Crux Obsidian, which is -1 damage, if I remember correctly, on a big Terminator Assault Squad. Hell yeah, dude. 10 Assault Terminators. Somebody saw Chaos Space Marines do it, and they're like, you know what? The time of the differently colored Chaos Space Marine Terminator is past. Today, we're painting our Chaos Space Marine Terminators black, but not because they're in Black Legion and they're going to be protecting Abaddon and stealing people's objectives away. It's because they're going to be Space Marine Terminators. They're going to be Black Templar Space Marine Terminators. Let's frickin' go, dude. Sick. Not -1 to wound, to be fair. It is -1 damage. But on the 3 wound models, it's really tough. So that is... yes. Fight on Death on a stick. -1 damage on the Terminator Assault Squad. Plus a Vanguard Veteran Squad with the Bones of Mordred. So that's a mortal wound on 6s in addition to normal damage. So you put that on the double Lightning Claw guy, and he full rerolls into the 6s. Is the combo there. So really making best use of the holy relics as we can. What are they called? Relic bearers. Alongside one Eradicator squad. Oftentimes you see the Crux Obsidian on the big Eradicator squad, but looks like we're just going to be running around with the Eradicators, mostly because they can just stand next to Helbrecht, and if you're not fighting people in melee, Helbrecht can just put full rerolls in a big range unit, and they can put damage out. You typically have to like expose yourself to deal any damage to Black Templars anyway, because they're just going to force a ton of objective secured, like impossible to kill infantry down your throat that can do like weird primary objective grabbing shenanigans. So you have to jump all your guns out into the open to shoot them anyway, and then the Eradicators pop out and just hit you with heavy melter rifles and you die, is normally how that goes. They don't have huge synergy. Yeah. They're like the chapter command upgrades that Black Templars get. It's their special thing. Yep. Is a Vanguard veteran that auto-include for every Space Marine list? I wouldn't say every Space Marine list. At one point, they certainly were, but most Space Marine lists, I would say. Blood Angels don't take them specifically because they have other very similar options that they're going to play instead. But almost every other sub-faction like kind of needs like an aggressive melee, either like a disruption or a counterpunch unit, and Vanguard veterans are just the best one in the Codex. I guess technically Space Wolves don't take them because they take Wolf Guard veterans, which are the same thing but different. Yeah, just devout pushing to glory for sure, chat. That faction's so weird, by the way, chat. If you haven't played against Black Templars, definitely like familiarize yourself with the wombo combos because they play a much stranger version of the game than any other faction. All right, moving on. We have Nico Catalano with Salamanders. This is the one I think everyone is excited about. And this list, chat, this list is wild. So it's a Vanguard detachment, not even a detachment that's going to regenerate CP. So we're already down 3 CP off the Vanguard detachment. Does it have to be a Vanguard detachment? This could just be a battalion. Maybe it's... No, it's not, because it has a single HQ. Fair enough. So we're all in on Vanguard, even though we've taken 3 troops choices. So 3 Incursor squads, lots of forward deploy, and then the elites begin. It is a hail of elites coming out here. 1 Centurion Assault Squad with Hurricane Bolters and Flamers. A 2nd Centurion Assault Squad with Hurricane Bolters and Flamers. So these... they don't get too many synergies because they're not core keyworded, so you can't. I don't believe like Adrax can put his aura, his reroll number of shots aura, right? Is his deal. But he can. That's his. Excuse me, that's his warlord trait, which he didn't take in this one. I don't know who's the warlord. It's a Primaris Apothecary. He does have a +1 to wound aura, but again, that's only core unit, so it doesn't affect the Centurion Assault Squads. But you get a lot of other benefits from Salamanders for playing the Assault Centurions. First off, the Flamers all get +1 to wound in Assault Doctrine, or in Tactical Doctrine, excuse me, because they are assault weapons. You can use... the stratagem where they heroically intervene into each other to overwatch for each other, so you can what is the name of that? What is the name of that stratagem? Well, I can't find it now. You can use there's a stratagem they can use to fire the Flamers in melee, so once they get stuck in melee, they can just out themselves with them. So there's so much synergy with Flamers. And then they can also, if you have the both units together, with, potentially like the smaller unit in front, for example, you get declared with a charge on that one, and then you can use the stratagem to overwatch with the second unit. And you can fire all the Flamers into them, and then potentially heroically intervene 2d6 inches. So basically countercharge. What is the name of that strat? why am I blanking on it? That is called Born Protectors. Born Protectors is the name. So they don't, it doesn't look like there's too much synergy because a lot of the Salamanders effects, and especially Crucible Battle, which is the number one reason you're playing Salamanders most of the time, which is +1 to wound for a character or core unit. That one doesn't work on the Centurions, and so normally you're not really that excited to play Centurions and Salamanders, but they do get so many just sort of passive effects for playing Salamanders that you're just like, nah, that's fine, I'll take them anyway. I think that Salamanders need, in order to be super useful, they need one big unit of flamey boys to force your opponent not to engage with you, and then you can just do your secondaries all game and do whatever you want. And Centurions, in my opinion, are the best one for that. Mostly because they're also impossible to kill, basically, once they're standing next to that Apothecary. So we have the Apothecary there, so he can regenerate the Centurions if he wants to. A Judiciary, so we can heroically intervene and also make you fight last. So we're all in on this huge brick of Centurions in the middle. And as a reminder, chat, these are a 1+ save because they're armor contempted. You cannot reroll wounds against them, and they're a 6+ damage ignore. So killing these units outside of just dealing with them with mortal wounds is super tough. And then we have a bunch of assault squads. So the assault squads can each take 2 Flamers for free, plus a Lightning Claw guy. So you can use your hit reroll from Salamanders on the Lightning Claw guy, and then they get +1 to wound in Tactical Doctrine on the Flamers. Just a solid unit. They're going to be good at doing secondaries. They can randomly kill other chaff units, and sometimes they pink for damage with the 2 Flamers in melee. Or in tactical, and then double Eradicator squads. Looks like 1 of 5? Oh, 1 of 6, excuse me. 2 of 6. Is that right? Yeah, 2 units of 6 Eradicators. And that's what we're going to be trying to score Promethean Creed on. So you pick an objective outside your deployment zone. Every turn that you hold that, you'll score points on it. and then if you have core units kill people or suffer attacks on it, you score additional points, and you get an extra point if you kill somebody with a melta or flamer weapon, which basically everyone in the list has. So, classic Salamanders list. This list is so cool, chat. Man's in chat here just going crazy that I forgot the name of that stratagem. But yeah, love Salamanders. I think the army's awesome. That was like, it's unfortunate that they play sort of so straightforward, but that was kind of a win of a codex, I think, because they just built the entire codex around playing this one way. They were like, all right, make a huge brick of guys, have a lot of effects to protect them, and then just like roll up the table and slowly kill people with flamer weapons. And they just they nailed it on the Salamanders army. So unlike a lot of Space Marine chapters that kind of do weird things, Salamanders are just so straightforward. They have one game plan, and as long as you mostly get good scenarios for yourself, you'll probably win most games with them. You just need to not get missions where you have like a weird setup of objectives, and you don't have a good Born Protector objective, or a spread scenario. Spread scenario is really bad. But given the fact that we saw two very similar Space Marine lists at number 1 and number 2, I imagine that they got good secondaries for their game plans. Bunker Down GT. We were asking for some Death Guard talk in the chat earlier, and I think this is our Death Guard list here, chat. We have, here it is, a mixed chaos list. Now, to be fair, I'll rip the Band-Aid right off. There is 15 flamers in this list, so, it is what it is. We're basically not using any sub-faction abilities because we don't have Agent of Chaos demons. We have Be'lakor and a Supreme Command, plus a mixed Tzeentch detachment. So a bunch of flamers in Ahriman, probably just to deal. Yeah, it looks like we're just dealing damage with him. He's Doom Bolton. He's Twist of Fate, and so we're getting rid of people's invulnerable saves, then shooting mortal wounds at them. But then we have a Flux Master to run around and give benefits to a bunch of flamers. So, to be fair, we're playing Be'lakor and a bunch of flamers, whatever. But the rest of the list, chat, is a Vanguard detachment out of Death Guard. I think this makes sense, right? So, like, flamers and the demon stuff, you're big. The danger is you don't want to get into melee, and you don't have objective secured, right? So, but if you are using Death Shroud Terminators, which are objective secured and brutally powerful in melee, if you're using those to sort of dissuade your opponent from coming in the flamers, or you're using the flamers to alpha your opponent and either respond to them outmaneuvering your Death Guard stuff, or just sort of forcing them into your Death Guard stuff, either one of those is going to set up the Death Shroud Terminators to do a bunch of damage. So it's 3 units of Death Shroud Terminators, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, and a Plague Caster. Pretty sweet. The Plague Burst Crawlers are a little inconsistent right now, but they do give you some pretty solid indirect fire. It's just fine. If you have the Flamers in reserve and you're just chilling like in your deployment zone with like Be'lakor and a bunch of DSTs, at least the Plague Burst Crawlers will put pressure on your opponent to move out, because otherwise they're just going to slowly die. And then Be'lakor obviously can warp Locus in the flamers wherever you want them to go. So as long as if he stays on the table, he can run up and drop them in your opponent's face, and then you can run up Death Shroud Terminators behind him, and like sort of the amount of beef that ends up in the center of the table is like pretty brutal. And then you also have multiple ways to get through invulnerable saves. So I guess if you're worried about invulnerable saves, we have a Twist of Fate on Ahriman, and we have Be'lakor himself can punch through invulnerable saves. So yeah. Plus we have a little bit of reach as well. You have the PPCs obviously can mortar people, but then you can also just Shrouded Step the Flamer units into people, and that also works. This is this list is sweet. Yeah, it is like, I mean, it's classic Chaos Soup, right? If you played in 8th edition, you'd recognize this list anywhere. This kind of list was basically all you saw in 8th edition from Chaos. The downside is that you lose all your super faction abilities. So I don't believe we are getting Warp Storms or Contagions of Nurgle or Kabbalistic Rituals. All of those turn off because we have mixed lists. Ahriman doesn't get his faction ability because he's not in a Tzeentch detachment, but that doesn't matter because the the Flamers, like all the Chaos stuff, doesn't have a faction ability anyway, so I don't care. Oh, I guess we can't Warp Locust in, right? Because we lost our Demonic Manifestation. But we can just Shrouded Step people. So ignore what I said about Warp Locusting. That also goes away. Right? That is the case, right? Oh, no, I think you can. Can you? How does this army work? Yeah, no, I think you can. Huh. Okay. Yeah, okay. You can always, excuse me, Jared. You can always Warp Locust. You can't just, you can't leadership set up on people. Yeah. That's an awkward ability. That's a weird ability. You only lose half of it if you're in a broken detachment. Bizarre. What a weird time. Yeah. All right. Well, it says it does what it says on the 10. Trays in the Infinite, would I say Necrons are a good army? Yes. Yes, I would. I think they're solidly above average right now. If you're good at playing the Obsec Dynasty list, you'll win most of your games. Some of your opponents will have, it's like very straightforward, and your opponents will have answers to it, and if they do, you'll die. But most of the time, you'll just roll over to them and score 100 points. So I would say Necrons, a lot of people would say Necrons are like one of the best armies, but I think that's sort of patently untrue. But I do think Necrons are very good. That one particular build is very good. And I think you can play the armies of Renown now, and they're probably fine. All right. So this list is sick, chat. We got some Death Guard up at the top here. Classic Chaos Soup. And then we also have more Space Marines coming out of the woodwork, chat. The Space Wolves. Saw some play. We have a Born Heroes Whirlwind of Rage mix. So the successor, the Space Wolves successor chapter that's doing its best Space Wolves core chapter impression, where you get +1 to hit and exploding 6s in the charge. And then if you're in Assault Doctrine, you also get exploding 6s again. So you get Tesla 6s on the charge from the combo there. So we have a captain. He's got a Power Fist because with that Born Heroes benefit, he basically just ignores the hit penalty. He has a Hunter, so advance and charge, and a Combi Melta. Primaris Chaplain on a bike. Catechism of Fire and Mantra of Strength. Beast Slayer, which I think gives him +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles. And Wise Orator. Good to see that we are actually taking the 2 Warlord traits from separate books, which is how you have to do it with the Warlord and then Warrior of Legend, the stratagem to get 2 Warlord traits. Every once in a while we catch a list that doesn't do that. It's questionably legal. We have 1 Assault Intercessor Squad, 2 Incursor Squads, 3 units of Wolf Guard. So like I said before, Space Wolves don't technically take Vanguard veterans, but they do have Wolf Guard, which is basically the same. Interesting, we are taking Combi Meltas on these guys. Makes them a little pricey and a little easier to kill, but you don't necessarily, with Armor of Contempt now, you don't necessarily need the Storm Shield anymore. So we have Lightning Claws, 3 Combi Meltas, 4 Combi Meltas, 4 Combi Meltas, and all jump packs. So very, very fast, pretty lethal. Sometimes we also see Master Artisans in these units instead of that Born Heroes to buff the Combi Meltas. You're shooting 4 Combi Melta shots. 1 reroll in there means you convert almost all of them most of the time. Unless you roll low. But either way, probably pretty good. 3 units of Wolfen. Just Wolfen with Thunderhammers and Storm Shields. Pretty straightforward. 1 unit of Sky Claws. These guys got the Assault Marine treatment where they get to take a lot of their upgrades for free. And there's also weirdness. We actually had to make a ruling on this in the Discord as well. The wording for their upgrades is borked, unfortunately. Well, fortunately for Space Wolves players, where it actually allows their unit leader to take a special weapon in addition to the special weapons in the rest of the unit. The way it's worded is that you can have 2 Sky Claws and 2 Sky Claw pack leaders upgraded with special weapons. Obviously, you can only have 1 Sky Claw pack leader, but it's worded that way in order because you can take Wolfguard in the unit as well, and so they have to be very particular with their wording. But it allows you to take 3 melta guns in a Skyclaw unit for very few points, which is pretty good, as it turns out. The list is the Chaos list is strange because they lose the DZ and leadership manifestation, but keep warp locus. Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. When they get like half of the ability, and I think in hindsight, that's because a lot of Chaos Space Marine units have warp locus, right? Or at least I say a lot, but I mean Masters of Possession. So if you say that like souped demons can never use warp locus, then you have this keyword on a unit in a different codex that just does nothing, which, you know, there's plenty of keywords that are going to do nothing, but I think they want to retain that synergy even if you're taking allied demons in there. We have an Eliminator squad with Mordekai's Teeth Bolts. So we get wound rerolls on something that we shoot at alongside 2 units of Long Fangs. No drop pod, though. They're just chilling. But we can use Cunning of the Wolf to outflank those guys, bring them on the side of the table, and then Keen senses them to ignore the penalty to move and shoot. And then, interestingly, they're taking all grav cannons as well. So we're not so worried about these multi-meltas anymore. I think in an age where everyone's playing Space Marines and Chaos, or less normal Space Marines, but Chaos Space Marines and Chaos Demons, interestingly, the multi-melt is less good because the grav cannons are higher volume. They can punch through. I mean, they're one of the best weapons in the game at punching through enemy heavy armor units. And because they get their additional damage shooting at those high armor, and then they're high volume, so shooting at Chaos Demons also is just fine. They're basically like a heavy bolter with upside, or I guess they're a side grade of a heavy bolter against low armor units, but they still shoot 4 times the model, so they can fire a ton of times into a demon unit. If I'm curious, he says he took banners, grind, a psychic, or kill secondary every game. Oh, for the chaos list? Yeah, so for Adam Die. Yeah, because you don't have access to any of your secondaries, right? Because you don't have any army keywords. So I mean, I think you're always going to take banners, right? Because it's just so good, and you have flamers who are really good at doing it. Grind them down is really interesting, but it makes sense if you assume that you're probably not going to get your Terminators or your Flamers one shot. And Flamers hit so hard that they probably are hitting above their weight class anyway. So like a Flamer unit's going to 2-for-1 basically every time. And you can grind pretty effectively out of that. Plus you have all of your characters doing damage too. And then a Psychic or Kill secondary every game. Yeah. Who are we casting Psychic powers with? I guess Bellicor. Ahriman doesn't have a way to do actions and cast, right? Because he doesn't have access to any of the Thousand Sun stuff. And the Flux Master, you want to be Infernal Flaming like every turn. Although you don't have any cast bonuses, so Infernal Flames is like a 7 with no buff. It's a little tough. So that makes sense. You could just do it with him, I guess, and forego your +1 to wound on the Flamers. But if guessed Engage over Grind, yeah, Engage gets screened so easily though. It's like Engage is just, I don't know, and especially because all of the missions, or most of the missions, are focused in on the center of the table. Unless you're playing like Data Scry Salvage, basically, the missions are all hyper focused in the middle, which means every unit is angled towards the center rather than the corners. So moving your guys into the corners, and especially like the top and bottom of that T, you know, sort of in the middle, if you divide the table quarters, which is normally where you score grind. There's nothing there, right? There's no relevant scenario elements there, so you can't score engage. I said grind earlier, but I meant engage. You can't score engage while fighting for objectives, basically, unless you're on your opponent's objective, which you're not really doing because you're mostly going to be deep striking your guys. Yeah, it's I don't know. I really don't like engage in FLM, unfortunately. I wish they like got rid of the, I don't know. Maybe I wish they got rid of the requirement to have 3 models or something. Or if you let aircraft score it, it's really easy, but yeah. There's just better maneuver secondaries in most factions, I think, is the problem. So anyway, this list is cool. There's a bunch of graph cannons. There's a bunch of meltas. Or just regular meltas. Normal meltas. And there's a bunch of wolfen. Good job. Forest Phantom. By the way, if that's your real name, which I sort of doubt, but if that is your real name, sick name. Ace name, dude. Haunting the woods of the Bunker Down GT over there, Mr. Forest Phantom. Moving on, the Adeptus Custodes trend continues. We have Travis Armstrong here from Denver 40k Fight Club, going 6-0 with Emperor's Chosen. Yeah, sick. Good stuff. I think we've talked about Custodes quite a bit. This list is a little bit different, though, actually. We do have a Blade Champion again. So many Blade Champions. Holy crap. Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle. Trajan Valoris, big unit of Custodian Guard. 3 spears, 5 shields, excuse me. Another spear unit and a Prosecutor unit. 3 Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts. Everyone's on the Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought chain right now, chat. What am I missing about Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts? What have I... I was prepared to be surprised by all of the Telamon Dreadnoughts in these lists, but I think I'm surprised by the Venerable Contemptors. Let's look at a Venerable Contemptor. I guess, like, I mean, you got the rerolls for Emperor's Chosen, right? That certainly helps. It's 155 points. They are core keyworded, so they get rerolls and stuff, which is good. And they're -1 damage and have a 6-up damage ignore, which I mean, that is a reasonably hard profile to kill for 155 points. With a 2+ save, 5+ invulnerable. But their damage output's like really awkward. 5 attacks at 3 damage, which is sort of whatever. They're good at killing Terminators, I guess. Is that what we're doing? Oh, the other ones went up in points. That is true. But sir, like, what is a Galatus? Like 180? Where are you at there, bud? For 25 more points, improving your invulnerable save significantly seems like the way you would want to go. And your damage output by a lot. Where's the Galatus Dreadnought? Yeah, so it's 25 more points to get the Galatus. You have a different gun, right? I'm not going to say it's like... It's worse than a multi-multi for sure, but it's better against infantry, so win some, you lose some. Your strength is lower, but you have, like, more attacks at 3 damage. So that's kind of a side grade. And you're significantly harder to kill. Maybe that's not worth it. But I think if I were to hazard a guess here, I think the high strength, so if you're punching Terminator bricks, you still win them on 3s, and you have a floating reroll, and having a multi-melta that also has a floating reroll is probably like where we're at. Right? Assault cannons have sucked for a while. Yeah, assault cannons. This is the Kiri's pattern, right? This is the special assault cannon. Still garbage. Just unplayable, unfortunately. You could, like, these. How are these the same? Right? Like, how is it the same points cost? This, like, 6-shot idiot gun with 1 AP, or, like, this Chad 2-shot, like, D6 plus 2 damage laser beam. Good way to pack Melta without spamming bikes. I guess so. It is 2 shots at 155 rather than 1 shot at 75 or whatever. The bike's 75 apiece, right? So they shoot harder, and they're sort of equivalently hard to kill. Their invuln save is worse, but their toughness is better, and their -1 damage. All right, I'm coming around, chat. I'm coming around. I'm understanding. It's just like that like regular 3 damage is like feels kind of derpy to me. But if you're hitting on 2s and you have a floating reroll from Emperor's Chosen, I think I could see it happen. All right, okay. I mean, clearly also like these players are like going X-1 and 6-0 in their events, so like clearly the Venerable Dreadnoughts are working for them. I'm not gonna sit here and say that they're wrong for taking them because results certainly speak. We do have one Contemptor Achilles in there with the big spear. 2 individual Alaris Custodians. Love to see these guys back in the table. Taking individual singleton models is like so strong, even if they're 60 points. But Alaris Custodian is like, I mean, it's just better than most like chaff infantry, right? You're gonna you know, compare like an Alaris Custodian to, I don't know, 5 Battle Sisters or something, and they cost the same. The Custodian's not obsec, but that dude will just kill all 5 Battle Sisters, and then you don't have to worry about that objective anymore. They're so difficult to remove. Like every time I play against the Singleton Alaris, and obviously they're less impactful now that they don't have objective secured, but every time I play against the Singleton Alaris, like one dude deep strikes in the back of my deployment zone, and I'm like, God, I have to like turn around something of appreciable damage to kill this idiot, because if I don't, he's just gonna kill all my backline objective holding. It just sucks, man. So cool to see the Alaris Custodians come back, and we also have Venatari Custodians with their lances. So that's the jump pack boys with the pokey shooty sticks. Enables behind enemy lines. That makes total sense too. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I like that a lot. Yeah, I mean the sisters are different, right? Like it's not a perfect comparison because like 5 Battle Sisters, if you compare them to a lot of the troops in the game, are like they're a little tough to kill. There's a lot of troops in the game where you accidentally kill 10 of them, like 10 guardsmen, right? You just shoot anything at 10 guardsmen, they're gone. But 5 Battle Sisters, they're 3+ save, they're armor contempted, they're probably in cover. Like they actually don't die that often, unless you contribute something appreciable to them, and they're troops options, so they fill up your detachment. So already they're going to be worse than most units. But obviously, like these Custodians, like if we're comparing them against these heavily armored infantry models, are actually pretty good at just murdering them. So like that guy just fighting with some Battle Sisters on an objective will eventually just take the objective. Whereas not all, you know, sort of random filler infantry can say that. Oh, compared to Sisters of Silence, yeah. yeah, that's true. The Sisters of Silence, I mean, like I just said, right? The Sisters of Silence fill out your troops, though. So you're going to take the Sisters of Silence anyway, for sure. The one cultist that survives Morale is an asshole. That's true. Yeah, unfortunately, I think they are. The large Custodians like 4 attacks apiece, right? They're like exactly enough attacks to not one-shot a unit. They'll probably like kill 1 with the bolter on the way in, and then they'll swing with the axe, and they'll kill like 3. And you're like, 1 guy's left. He passes morale. I'll take your objective for a turn. They're like, I'll have to kill you next turn. How dare you? All right, we have Zach Kerstetter here, that I think we've talked about on the stream previously, with Blood Angels. And it is a Blood Angels list. There's a bunch of Sanguinary Guard. There's some Assault Marines. There's some Eliminators. There's a Whirlwind. I think I just did a whole video on this list, right? Do we have to talk about this again? You can go watch my video if we want to talk about the Death Company focused Blood Angels list. But this list is clearly very good, and Zach Kerstetter is kicking ass with it. So congratulations to him. X1, another Space Marine and X1 this week. So there's so much cool stuff going on. And then last but certainly not least, from Denver Fight Club, Cody Giroux with Drukari. And Drukari, I will say, I think I put them pretty high on my power ranking because they have a really good win rate. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, especially since they have decent mortal wound output, which is something that, especially in a meta right now, that we are like focused on these heavily armored units. Having decent mortal wound output and like a lot of maneuverability just makes you really strong. But we just don't have, there's not a huge player base for them, right? And so it's just like really good players doing really well with them, and no one else really touches them. Kind of like how sort of Eldar, most of the Eldar factions end up right now, right? Like Harlequins are the best faction in the game and nobody plays them. So we have a Court of the Archon, 4 sliths, 4 Urgals, and a Lamian. Classic Court of the Archon build in there. An Ancient Evil Archon to make people fight last. 5 Cabalite Warriors, 2 units of Mandrakes for 4 deploy. 3 Venoms, and a Raider with a Disintegrator Cannon. Disintegrator, not a Dark Lance. That's cool. So higher volume of attacks, but low strength. Drazar as the Warlord with Eternal Hatred, so double, or he gets his double swings all the time, but full rerolls on all of his attacks. It's interesting once you see Drazar sometimes in these Drukari lists come out, and he doesn't have his Warlord trait, and the difference between like Warlord trait Drazar and not Warlord trait Drazar is like a multiplicative effective damage. No Warlord trait Drazar. He a chump. That little guy doesn't do anything. Warlord trait Drazar though, because he doubles his attacks, right? He can not only attack twice, but he can also double his attacks with his weapon swing. So he can make 10 2-damage attacks, right? 9 2-damage attacks. So all of those rerolling, then doubling that, means that the amount of rerolls that he gets out of his Warlord trait is absolutely ludicrous. And once you see him punch somebody without that Warlord trait, you're like, wow, okay. Whatever. I can see how they thought that this character would be fair back in the day. He's been power crept a little bit. Obviously, he's no Abaddon, but he's more efficient than Abaddon. And I don't know. Abaddon's like 300 points and takes like your Supreme Command slot. Drazar's only 145. He's so strong. Drukari played Custodes in the final round. Succubus absolutely bounced off a bike cannon. The captain, yeah, that can happen. I mean, high armor saves I think suck for Drukari for sure, unless you're doing the mortal wounds. But obviously, Emperor's Chosen can get around that. 2 Talos, 1 unit of Grotesques, and then the 3rd detachment. So we're really taking advantage of the free patrol detachments that Drukari get. I guess that's another benefit is that they don't really pay for the detachments, right? Either they're a real space raid and get access to almost everything in one detachment, or they just take free patrols. So they, unlike a lot of other factions, they can just sort of play whatever units they want and whatever battlefield roll slots they want, and they don't really have to pay for them, which is pretty sick. So it's the competitive edge triptych Whip Succubus, plus 2 units of Incubi to go with Drazar over there. Some Reavers, do some mortal wounds and run around, alongside a unit of Witches. Cool. Mostly classic Drukari stuff. Moving a little bit to Venoms off of Raiders, you know, just a little bit of a change. Kind of doing our best Harlequins impression. All right, and then we got our last couple of events here. We have Adeptus Custodes once again from PCG Lightly Salted Fall GT. Marshall Peterson went 5-0 with Leagues of Votan. I think Marshall Peterson, if I remember correctly, I don't know, a little bit of a questionable player. Has misplayed things on things in his favor significantly. So I hope that didn't happen in this case, but it is what it is. 5-0 with Leagues of Votan, so we're finally seeing Votan come out in a big way. This is playing Cronus Hegemony, which is we're gonna have to learn some stuff about Leagues of Votan chat, because I'm a whole 1 game into them, and unfortunately they haven't been able to get to many finals games, so I haven't watched them play too much. Leagues of Votan I am a brand new shiny child to. So Cronus Hegemony is the melee subfaction, so we get +1 attack on the charge, +1 strength on the charge, and I think they have a fight on death, right? No, they have exploding 6s for 1 CP on their stratagem, and if you have a judgment token on you, you get +1 AP. So +1 attack, strength, and AP against somebody who you charge that has a judgment token on you, which is pretty brutal in melee. So it's all melee. A lot of times we're seeing either Greater Thurian or Ymir Conglomerate, I think, coming out of Leagues of Votan. So it's interesting to see Chronos Hegemony, because I wasn't totally expecting that one to be the one to play. But I think if you're playing Berserks, which it looks like he is, which is misspelled in the elite slot here, I'm gonna point that out on Battlescribe. The unit is called a Berserk, not a Berserk. It's definitely the way to go. So 30 Hearthkin Warriors. Looks like 1 unit of just 10 idiots to fill out the slot there. 1 unit, 2 units with scanners, metapacks, and magna rails. So we have the big rifle. The wombo combo we're usually going to use here is the rifle guy's going to peek out and shoot his big cannon at somebody and do a bunch of damage. Probably it's like a D3 damage ignore invuln save weapon. and you shoot back. They pull the rifle guy and then use the metapack strat to just heal him right back, and then they can just do it again. So it's the same sort of situation. It's the same combo that you use in Adeptus Sororitas as well. If you're playing those 10 model Retributor bricks, where they multi-melter Retributors leave cover, they get shot, and then you use your regeneration abilities to bring them back in. Yeah, so playing triple Berserks, not Berserks, Berserks, die on that hill. Although it's a stupid name. I talked about it when I reviewed the Codex. What a dumb name. It doesn't make any sense. Just call them Berserks. Very bad. They have the grenade launchers, a mix of axes and mauls. Looks like one with mauls, two with axes. The axes, I believe, have the sweep profile, so they're better at dealing with with worse stuff. But the mauls are Thunderhammers, basically, right? They're big damage, but have -1 to hit. Yeah, so the mauls are strength 10, AP 3 damage, but you do have a stratagem for Berserks to re-roll hit rolls, if I remember correctly. Yes, Berserks for 1 CP can reroll hit rolls, and then you can wombo combo that with the Cronus Hegemony strats to explode 6s. So you can be rerolling into explosions, so you can get billions of attacks out of these guys. So they get a 4 attacks apiece, hitting on 4s, full rerolling, auto wounding probably on something, and then also exploding on 6s, which is pretty good. For AP 4-ish, 3 damage, which is strong. The axes, either at strength 6, 2 damage, or strength 5, 1 damage, but double your attacks. So that also, like, the whole exploding 6s wombo combo goes absolutely crazy with them too. 5 Hearthguard, so little Terminator boys. Alongside 2 units, of Hrunkin Pioneers. For some pregame move. They don't forward deploy technically, but they do pregame move. So they're good at screening. They're good at stealing objectives, playing the mission. And 2 Sagittor ATVs, probably to put Berserks in, I would assume. Don't really have a great way of delivering them otherwise because they are slow. But obviously the Sagittors can get them close, and then you can also use the Sagittors to split a Hearthkin Warrior unit. So you can actually put like sort of either one of the Magna Rail units in, and you can split 5 off into 1 Sagittor and then leave the Magna Rail in another one, and then you just disembark those guys, and they actually combat squad, which is pretty cool. The only way you can split up these big Hearthkin Warrior units in the faction, which gives you a sort of a idiot backline objective holding unit if you want to play more aggressively with the other unit. And then if you want to, you can just disembark and then embark on the first turn and like swap something out if you're not trying to play super aggressively. So congratulations to Marshall Peterson. I think the first XO that we have with Leagues of Votan, right? Is that right? Is that the case? More Adeptus Custodes. I'm a little Adeptus Custodes out, chat, so we'll take a quick gander. Oh no, this is the wrong list. Well, sorry, Derek. And then last but certainly not least, Atomic City Warzone, won by Tyranids at 5-0, Ryan Lynn. Ooh, a behemoth list, so a little bit different than normal. Running 3 units of 5 Tyranid warriors, love it. Winged Hive Tyrant, 1 Narrowthrope with direct guidance to give +1 to hit. 3 units of Zonethropes. This one's also Synaptic Ganglia, chat. So just like we were talking about with Jonathan DeLeo's list, gets the reroll to deny and +3 inches on manifesting powers. So those Zonethropes are going to be smiting at 18 inches. 1 unit of Venomthropes, Tyrant Guard, Biovores. And we also brought in our Genestealer Cult attachment. This list is sick. This is Force of the Hive 9, not an irregular Tyranids. So if they'll change that. We do have 1 Spore Assist in there. A Magus, 2 units of Acolyte Hybrids, Adelan Jackals. So it gives you a little bit more, what's the word? More maneuverable objective secured, and especially if you're not worried about secondary objectives so much, because the Tyranid ones are not that great. You do have, you lose out on Cranial Feasting, right? Because you're not, or I guess, Tyranids might actually keep their secondary objectives, right? Because everything in the faction is Tyranid keyworded. Does that work? I actually haven't thought about that before because the hive tendril nomenclature was added after the codex or after the Nephilim came out, right? Was that the case? Oh no, it is hive tendril. It does require hive tendril. I think, yeah. So I don't believe you get secondaries in this list. Are Votan Berserkers Space Wolf Wolfen with extra steps? Absolutely, they are. Yeah. They're almost identically the same unit. They're so similar. The Berserks are better, but they're a little bit slower. Their saves are worse, but they have a pretty strong damage ignore, and I think they both like sort of hit pretty similar damage and melee. So they're basically the same. Okay, so I don't believe that we're getting secondary objectives in this list, and we also don't get synaptic imperatives, right? Because we're a mixed faction detachment or a mixed detachment list. So you don't have to worry so much about having all of the correct units in there, but we do have the triple zone throw, so it doesn't matter so much. But everything having a pretty solid and vulnerable save makes sense. But if we can play aggressively with the Adelan Jackals and Acolytes, use those to sort of fight for the center of the table for the early game. Once your opponent comes into the middle of the table, 3 units of Tyranid Warriors, which I've talked about before, in High Fleet Behemoth are basically just the most dangerous Tyranid Warriors. They're one of the most dangerous troops options in the game, probably. They go to strength 9 on the charge with Adrenal Glands and can get +1 to wound from the Behemoth Psychic Power. So they hit for... They wound almost the entirety of the game on 2s, which is pretty scary. They're only AP 2, so Armor of Contempt sometimes get around them, but the attacking 25 times if you use the strat for +1 attack, the Adrenal Gland strat, they will probably kill most things in the game. Plus, you're walking into 3 zone throws smiting you, so that's pretty brutal. So, congratulations to Ryan. I was ready to talk about what is not an interesting faction, but that is a very interesting list out of Tyranids. And it goes to show you that Tyranids still have a lot of interesting builds available. Joel Rogers in here with Grey Knights as well. One of the saddest armies in the game. Pure Grey Knights going X and 1 with Rapiers. We have Kaldor Drago and a Nemesis Grandmaster, plus Brotherhood Librarian in the HQ slot. 3 strike squads, some servitors to hold an objective. These ones have multi-meltas? Hold up. What? We paid for guns on our servitors? No way, dude. That was 20 points left over in the list, and he's like, I can't put any more interceptors in my interceptor squads because I've already taken 30 of them. I don't have any more upgrades for the Nemesis Dread Knights, and if I take an extra strike squad, they won't fit into this Razorback, and there'll be 6 models for blast and stuff. So I don't want to do that. I guess they're 22 points. You can't even take an extra strike marine. So you're just the only thing you can spend points on. You could put heavy weapons in your strike squads, right? But you don't really want to do that because you lose your melee. It's the only thing they had to spend points on was guns on the servitors. That's a achievement unlocked moment in 40k is when you kill someone with your servitor gun. I lost a Lictor to a servitor gun once. I'll never live it down. It was a heavy bolter that time, though. And then 3 interceptor squads, straightforward, and another Nemesis Dread Knight, plus a Razorback with twin las cannons. Good stuff. Just a veritable tide of silver Space Marines. 2 Dread Knights and 45 silver armored Space Marines running at you. Just going to hit you with sticks. Last but I guess least. I think this is a relatively small event. We do have a Farsight Enclaves list from Alex Kostiuk. A little bit different than the one we talked about earlier. This one is single Riptide, double Sun Shark, and then 2 big Crisis Battlesuit units, 1 Stealth Battlesuit unit with a homing beacon, so we can drop them in. We can drop one of the big units in early game. And then Crude Hounds, 3 units of Crude Carnivores, Do you see Commander Farsight coming out here? Exemplar of the Kalyun Fireblade and a Cold Star Commander with Precision of the Hunter. So almost exactly the same build that we saw for HQs anyway that we saw in the other Farsight Enclaves list we talked about. But swapped that third Crisis Battlesuit team for more vehicles, basically. And that's it, chat. We've talked about everything. So, man, this weekend in competitive 40k was absolutely sick. The number of top 3 and top 5 factions that we saw. Obviously, Tyranid's still highly represented, but like almost matched by Adeptus Custodes. And I don't know if it was just every once in a while we get a fluke week where we see a faction come out of nowhere and do really well one week and then not so much the next. Or maybe like this new technology of taking regular venerable dreadnoughts was actually what Adeptus Custodes needed to give themselves an out. But Custodes doing well. We saw a little bit of Militarum. We saw some mixed Imperium. We saw a lot of different Space Marine factions, Black Templars, Blood Angels, Salamanders, Space Wolves all did well. Obviously, the ever-present Chaos Space Marines and Chaos Demons. Even some Grey Knights, 5-0 Leagues of Votan. One of the most interesting lists, I think, in the interesting final results for recent 40k. Yeah, we figured out the meta chat, and it was whatever. It's bring stuff. Make sure you can play your faction well and play a consistent game plan, and you'll probably win. Maybe. Definitely, kind of feels like we're. I mean, I don't know if you can win with any list, but you can definitely make a go of it with any faction. It feels like these days, which is cool. All right, chat. Whoa, what a time. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up there. So thanks everyone for hanging out with me. This is a long one. We had so many cool freaking lists to talk about, and I'm psyched that we did. So I'm gonna hop off. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm very hungry. It's time for me to eat dinner, and I hope everyone else has some delicious dinner. So remember to keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming, and I will see you in the next one.